Hello, dear students. Today I am going to start company accounts. Company accounts, issue of shares. First discuss the theory portions. What do you mean by company? A company is an artificial person created by law having a corporate and legal separate entity with a perpetual succession and a common seals. That means company is a voluntary association started by any types of company, private company or public company, having a separate legal entity. Entity means long life and perpetual successions and a common seal, that is known as company. Okay. Now the kinds of companies. On the basis of participation, company may be divided into two: private company and public company. Private company means under the Companies Act section 2 subsection 68 of the Companies Act 2013, a private company is a company which by its articles of association restrict the rights transfer of its shares and their limits the number of its members minimum to maximum 200. Okay. And their second, public company. Public company, Companies Act section 2 subsection 71 of the Companies Act 2013. Public company is a company which is not a private company but has a minimum paid up capital as may be prescribed, and a private company but subsidiary of a public company. Their minimum number of members is 7, maximum is unlimited. Okay. Now this is the theory portion of private company, public company. Again also there difference on the basis of the private company, public company. Minimum number of member is 2, maximum 200, and in the case of private company but public company, their minimum number of members is 7, maximum unlimited, and name of the company PVT Limited is must, but private company mention their name of the company PVT Limited is must, but in the case of public company only limited, and transfer of its shares. That means in the case of private company there is restriction on the transfer of its shares, but in the case of public company there is no restriction on the transfer of its shares. Again also there are another important difference, the number of directors. At least 2 directors are present in the case of private company, but in the case of public company at least 3 directors. Okay. And again another important difference, preparations of their articles. In the case of private company, preparation of articles is necessary for all private companies, but in the case of public company preparation of articles is not necessary. Okay. Now then discuss 1% shares or OPC. According to Companies Act 2013 introduces a new types of entity is existing list, that is apart from the forming of a public or private company, the acts enable the formation of a new entity, 1% company, short form OPC. OPC means a private limited company which is only 1% of its member. Okay, that is known as OPC or 1% company. Now next discuss their shares. Shares. What is the meaning of shares? The total capital of the company is divided into units. Units of small denomination. Each unit is called share. Okay. Now shares are issued only by the public company, shares issued in the open market, but private company not issue in the open market. Then types of shares. Shares may be divided into two: preference shares and equity shares. Preference shares, again there are 8 types of preference shares. 8 types of preference shares means cumulative preference shares, non-cumulative preference shares, participating preference shares, non-participating preference shares, redeemable preference shares, irredeemable preference shares, convertible preference shares, non-convertible preference shares. Okay, that is the preference share and their types. Next, equity shares. Equity shares are those shares which are paid dividends only when the profits are left after the all payments of their preference shareholders have been paid a fixed rate of dividend. Okay, now then again another questions arise, what the difference between preference shares and equity shares. So many differences. There equity shares and preference share, the rate of dividend. Preference share, the rate of dividend is fixed, but equity shares rate of dividend is not fixed, depend on their profit. Okay, now another on the basis of their arrears of dividend. If dividend is not paid on these shares in any year, the arrears of dividend may accumulate in the case of preference share, but in the case of equity shares, dividend cannot be accumulated. Okay, now their voting rights. Voting rights in the case of preference shares do not have any voting rights, but in the case of preference share, their voting rights must one share, one vote also. And again preference share rights on the basis of their payment of capital. When a company is winding up, the first payment their preference shares capital. After payment all the preference shares capital, then payment their equity shareholders. Their equity shares capital is paid only when preference shares capital is paid out fully. Next again another important difference again, right to participate in the management. In the case of preference share do not have to right to take participate in the management, but in the case of equity share they have full rights to participate in the management of the company. That is the main difference between equity shares. Now next again another theory portion, their share capital. Share capital means the capital raised by a company by issue of shares. Issue of shares, next class discuss in details that issue of shares. What do you mean by share capital? Again repeat, share capital means the capital raised by a company by issue of shares in general public. There are various types of capitals are, they are authorized capital, issued capital, subscribed capital, called up capital and paid up capital. Now first discuss their authorized capital or others name nominal capital or registered capital. When company is started, their memorandum of association is specifically mentioned there during the lifetime of the company what is their capital. This is the maximum capital for which a company is authorized to issue shares during its lifetime. Okay, now then issued capital, next part, issued capital. Issued capital means it is a part of authorized capital. Part of authorized capital which is actually offered to the public for subscription. The remaining part of the authorized capital is known as unissued capital. Okay, next part, subscribed capital. Subscribed capital, point number C, subscribed capital. Subscribed capital means it is the part of the issued capital which has been subscribed for the public. Subscribed capital, again also there are two heads, subscribed capital fully paid up, subscribed capital not fully paid up. Okay, next another point, that is the called up capital. Called up capital. Called up capital means according to section 2 subsection 15 of the Companies Act 2015, called up capital means such part of capital which has been called for payment. Okay, the portion of subscribed capital that the directors required to shareholders to pay on the shares allotted to them is known as called up capital. Next part, last, they are paid up capital. Paid up capital. Paid up capital means according to section 2 subsection 64 of the Companies Act 2013, paid up share capital or share capital paid up means by aggregate of money credited and paid up as an equivalent to the amount received as paid up in respect of shares issued, and also includes any amount credited as paid up in respect of shares of a company. Okay, that is known as paid up capital. And another also reserve capital. Reserve capital means according to section 65 of the Companies Act 2013, only an unlimited company having the shares capital while converting into a limited company may have a reserve capital. Okay, that is the discussed in details their share capital. Share capital, it's also prepared the balance sheets of the company, their notes to accounts, the capital of the company formed. In this form, authorized capital or nominal capital, issued capital, subscribed capital, called up capital, paid up capital. Okay, now then that is the equities, asset sides and liability sides also. Now next video discuss their company issue of shares. Issue of shares at par, at premium. At par means face value. Say one share, their minimum value is say rupees 10. 10 should be divided into their 4 parts: application money, allotment money, first call money and final call money. Issue of shares at par, at premium also. Premium means more than face value. Okay, thank you.